Hi, Erin. Nice to see you, your face, not just the voice from this afternoon.
Right. Nice to meet you in person.
Definitely. Well, I kind of wanted to just kick off things with just a little bit of icebreaker. I know that when you and I chatted for a few minutes this morning, you'd said that you were in Wisconsin. Tell me how you got there.
Um, Not by choice right away, but I like it now. I do live in Wisconsin. I live outside of Milwaukee in a city called Pewaukee. We call it Lake Country. There are lakes everywhere around us. And where yesterday it was negative 18 degrees. So it's wonderful. Um, and I got here through a lot of things. I grew up in Illinois. I spent 10 years in Vegas, 2 or 3 years in Dallas, 2 years in Austin, and we moved up here 4 years ago now. And so now I own winter coats. It's very
Yeah, I
exciting.
hear you. Yeah, going from Vegas to Texas to Wisconsin must just have been quite a jolt.
Yeah, every day I thought this is as cold as it could possibly get, right? And
Yeah,
that was a vicious curse because now, like, when it gets that cold, you just don't like, there's no ability to look cute or attractive or anything. You're just like trying to survive. Every inch of your body is covered and you're just trying not to die outside.
right. I when I moved from Southern California to the Midwest, 20 years ago, I've decided I went from fashion to function. I
Yes.
don't care what I
Yes.
look like. We're just going to go with warm.
Yep. Just got to survive.
I love it. I love it. Well, I have to admit, this kind of all came about Fast and Furious. So I was doing a little homework on you, and you had done a webinar right when you guys were launching your loyalty program.
Mhm.
And then so I went online and I looked, and they'd said that the rewards program is called Yeah
Hell
Reward.
yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I think this is going to be perfect for us. And I would like a t-shirt if that is at all possible.
Absolutely. Serendipitous.
So that's wonderful. Well, I know that going into this, the whole theme of the Brand Innovators platform is setting the stage for 2022. So I would love to learn a little bit more about what Del Taco's kind of priorities are going into 2022. Lots of things happening.
Yeah, it's a good question. I will tell you that I think all restaurants out there right now, well, all industries are surviving again with the surge of COVID, right? So, some days it feels like we're back in March of 2020 or whatever year that way. It feels like so many years ago with the lockdown. So all of our premonitions at the beginning of Q4 last year kind of all changed early on this year, but we're hopeful. I think everybody's hopeful that we quickly can see some sun, some light at the end of the tunnel, and then focus on continuing to grow the CRM, grow the data acquisition, grow our customer loyalty so that we can continue to speak to our customers in a way they want to be spoken to.
That's wonderful. And I know that when you guys launched your loyalty program, that you had mentioned something about kind of going top to bottom in terms of addressing the funnel. How has that been working out for you guys? What have you guys been seeing that's really worked?
It's going very well. I mean, it's an acquisition tool, right? Like getting people. It's like dating, right? Like nobody shows up for a first date and they're like, well, ready to get married. You seem like the right one, right? I mean, maybe you do, but
Well, I was just going to say, there's a couple
yeah.
of reality shows that beg to differ.
Yes, I'm sure that's the case. But in this case, I think what's funny is I'll talk to businesses and they'll go, I just want everyone to download our app. That's not going to happen, right? Like it's still your top tier customer that's downloading that app. And when I say top tier, it's your most loyal customer, your most frequent customer. If I only ever go to a restaurant once, I'm probably not downloading their app unless they're giving me like a card to do it, right? Like I'm not going to go through all that work in order to find out that I'm never going to go back there, right? It's like people downloading your app just for vacation. It's not going to happen often. Instead, it's as people come down that funnel and they choose to like Del Taco, they choose to get involved with Del Taco, they're really getting into a relationship with us. That's when they download the app. That's when they want to be part of our loyalty. And so looking at it that way, I think oftentimes we think, well, we're rolling this out. Why don't we have 100% penetration? That's never going to happen.
No, that's true. That's true. And you know, you had briefly touched on kind of where we've been over the last 2 years. You know, from a marketing standpoint, things have definitely kind of risen to the top in terms of CTV, in terms of audio. How has Del Taco kind of evolved their strategy to address all of these?
Yeah. And I would say that it's not just us. Everybody I talk to has the same idea, which is like when we saw wherever the eyeballs are, wherever the ears are, that's where we want to be, right? It's not just like, I wouldn't say that you're always thinking about it as this is CTV and this is regular TV and this is this and this is that. It's really about where are the eyeballs, where are they hearing it, where are they seeing it? And that's where I want to be. And so CTV obviously has come full force, right? Like when you look at the content being generated on these CTV channels, whether like the Slings of the world and all those, like it's insane where people are consuming content and how much content they're consuming, and then trying to get in front of them in all different aspects. So yeah, we've definitely seen that continue to grow. We've seen digital across the board continue to grow because that's where it's getting consumed on, right? It was interesting right after the pandemic hit and nobody was going back and forth to work. Someone tried to pontificate that, well, no, billboards are still really important right now. And I said, there's literally no traffic on the road. Like I'm not buying a billboard right now. It's not going to happen. But what's interesting is it took people a while to go, oh, okay, we need to adjust. We need to move. Not for us. Like we followed the customer. Wherever the customer is, that's where we want to be.
Sure. You mentioned CTV. How are you guys kind of standing out within the CTV environment?
I think not just CTV, but any channel. It's about creating the content that's right for that channel. And so years ago, people used to say like, oh, I do my digital banners and then I take them and I put them on Facebook. And it always made us cringe, right? Like any place I've ever worked, like you'd go, no, you can't do that. And they go, but it's cheaper to do that because you just create content once. You can't do that. Isn't that like, and it's taken years for marketers to go, oh my gosh, you mean I have to create content by the channel based on who's consuming it? That's nuts. But it is, and it's way more time consuming. And then we went through the phase where it was content is king and nobody knew what that meant. But it is, it really is. It's about, am I serving up the right information to the customer at the right time? And that's never going to go away.
Sure. I like the word, I like that you use the word kind of just creating content and the idea of customization behind it. You know, a lot of what Undertone does is really customize what we put out from a creative standpoint to the KPI. But when you guys are looking at creative, how does that kind of play into the customer? So do you ever see that synergy with like social falling into display and falling into CTV? Could you see that sort of kind of connecting the lines, that creative tissue?
Yeah, I think the creative can be the same type of story. You just tell the story differently on each channel. So it can still be the same story. It's just cut up and pieced together differently. I don't think the same content is typically used for a channel, at least not for us. It is really about contextual targeting with the creative. I also think that depending on what that call to action is, right? Like if I already know the customer and I know they're a frequent customer, then I'm going to serve them up like a download my app ad, versus if I don't know the customer at all and I just know that maybe they like other fast food or other QSRs, then I'm going to serve them up a completely different like brand awareness ad that teaches them who we are and why they should come hang out with us. And then I want to track it, right? So it might be just find our location, but then I'm going to track it through like foot traffic, or it could be order now or download or whatever it might be. Ours is, I come out of hotels and hospitality where it was always so much easier to track because you booked it online, right? not a ton of people still call the call center and book their hotel rooms. They book it online. Therefore, I could track all the way through the whole journey. It's a little more tricky when you're studying foot traffic and trying to figure out like, okay, you saw the ad, but did you come to my restaurant? And then the pandemic made it even, I'm just like jumping ahead. I'm sure you're probably going to be like, you just answered another question.
No.
But it's even more tricky now that like delivery exists, and we know DoorDash isn't handing over data. They're not being like, yeah, all these customers, you serve them an ad and they all order delivery. So now it just makes it a little extra tricky to go, did that ad I serve you deliver? No pun intended, even if you ordered delivery, right?
That attribution model that we used to rely on no longer kind of plays into the conversation.
Correct.
So yeah, no, I definitely get it. In terms of, you had brought up contextual, obviously that is the kind of the how the industry is starting to lean, especially as we approach cookieless. How is Del Taco, what steps are you guys kind of taking, whenever Google's ready to flip that switch?
Yeah. I think we're all waiting with bated breath, right? Like we don't want it to happen, but it's going to happen. We just don't know exactly when, like that, because it keeps getting delayed. But what we do know is that contextual targeting based on the data that we do have is really important. And also put a bigger emphasis, not that we haven't been talking about data for years, and anybody who knows me knows how much I like hearing the term big data, which is not at all, because every time someone says, I was like, we've always had big data, like this is not new news. But it put a bigger emphasis on like, oh guys, we got to get our stuff together and figure out how to make sure that data for us is very important. And what do we have? And what does the customer gain by us having their data? And we know over and over that studies show that customers are willing, especially millennials and younger, are willing to give over data as long as you use it appropriately, right? The moment you don't, or you become like, they used to call it creepy or weird, or you serve them up an ad that's not relevant to them, is the moment they start to care. But it's always fascinating to me because when someone will say, hey, I don't want you to target me. I don't want you to have my data. No. And then they'll come back and they'll go, all these offers you send me are so not relevant to me. Like I never eat this food. I wish you would serve me up like vegan tacos. And I'm like, you said you didn't want us to have your data. If we don't have your data, if we don't know that you eat vegan tacos, how do you want me to send you those offers? And there's like a light bulb for certain customers, right? Like that's up there with people who like think that the government's tracking them through other means, but you're like, do you have a phone? Because we are. I mean, we're not the government, but like, it's just completely crazy to me that every now and then you get someone who goes, no, I don't want you to track me. And then they go, well, I'm not getting any relevant mail or offers, even direct mail anymore. Like, what do I do? Well, you asked everybody not to track you. So that's like your penance now.
Right. Yeah. I'm following the rules. You opted out.
Yeah.
I'd love to know so, you guys are always coming up with new menu items. What would we be surprised to learn about Del Taco in 2022?
Well, I think it's something that everybody's always surprised to learn, but it's nothing new for us, which is that our food is cooked fresh. Like our avocados are sliced and diced in the restaurant to make our guacamole fresh every day. Our pico de gallo is made fresh. Everything is like, it's grilled, it's made. Our double del burger is so good. It is. So I'll tell you this. The first time working for Del Taco, someone said you should eat the burger, and in my head, I'll be honest, I was like, the name is Del Taco, like I don't know, like maybe I should go for tacos. But I ate it and I was blown away, and I don't even like, it was so like, I ate the whole thing. And anyone who knows me knows that is weird for me. And then afterwards, I felt like I had to do my own test. So I went to a very big competitor that also serves a burger similar. And I ordered it because I was like, you know what, maybe I just forgot what these burgers taste like. Maybe they're all really good. And again, I was like, no, ours is that good. It is really that good. So that it's fresh, that food is really cooked, sliced and diced in the restaurant, made for them. which is very different than a lot of our competitors. That puts us in the QSR plus category. I think people would be shocked to know that, like, how good our shakes are and our popper drinks and all of that food, like, and our Beyond product. So for vegans out there, like, our Beyond product is so good. So now you already have a staple, right? Your product is good. And then it's the experience that goes on top of it. And it's really a fun experience. It is, it's different and it's fast. I'm in and out of that drive-through in like 30 seconds. It's insane. And so when I first started, I was like, oh, it's great. We're going to do like line busters and there's never going to be a wait. And they're like, there isn't a wait. Like, we're that fast. Completely blew my mind, which makes my job harder, right? So I can't be like, online order, we're so fast. Why would you online order? You can drive through the drive-through. It's ridiculously fast. So it's interesting because I think when people experience it, those are the people that experience it. And then they call me and they go, oh my gosh, you weren't lying. This is really good. This is really fast. This is like all the things you said. And it's continuing an education of that. And so as we grow, which we are growing, and it's very exciting, and all the news has shown that, it's going to hopefully impact the customer even more so that they understand what they are truly getting and the value. We just rolled out a 20 under $2 menu.
I saw that.
Find me a value menu anywhere else that you can get that much value. It's insane. So 20 under 2, like, you can't go many places and get that. You can't go to, well, anywhere else. I can't think of anywhere else you can get that kind of value. So we're really excited about that and seeing what that's going to do.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Like I said, you were talking about the just menu items. When I was growing up, Del Taco was about a mile from my high school. So it was definitely a staple. And when you mentioned about, you're a Mexican, your tacos, but I always order the crinkle fries. I was like, there's nowhere better here.
That's what, yeah, everybody raves about those. And like, again, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, great. And I tried them and they're not wrong. They're really good.
So I'm going to shift gears just a little bit. At Undertone this past year, we started looking at publishers who were minority owned, who were, supporting different issues and things that are happening in within their communities. And I'd love to hear a little bit about how Del Taco is addressing such social issues, and kind of, you guys are localized in a sense that it's not necessarily national at this point, but I know there will come a day. But how are you guys kind of addressing social issues, things that are happening more on a local level?
Yeah, so I think obviously each of our restaurants involved on their local level, and we encourage them to be involved in their community and address it. I think that is definitely one of those things that is a constant internal conversation. It's something that we're always, and when I say always, definitely most recently at the forefront of the conversation. And it will be something you will hopefully for all of us see a big difference in 2022, not just from us, but other brands as well. That's where I'll leave it, because it is something that's a constant conversation of how we cultivate this and grow this through 2022.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of just growing. Everything kind of happened all at once at the end of 2019 and at the beginning of 2020, that just all, I don't know if there's ever kind of the right move, you kind of ebb and flow, right?
It's definitely made, I think, everyone, me personally, more conscious, right? And conscious and conscientious in how I approach things. And I personally had a lot of learning to do throughout this process, and it was very eye-opening. And joining group chats and talking to people about like their feelings about everything that was happening. And I'm nowhere near, like, I feel like there's so much more education I need to do for myself around it. So it is something that, like you said, it all kind of built up right then. I think it's been an undertone, no pun, an undertone for a very long time. Yeah, go ahead. For a very long time, but it just kind of, it all surfaced right around the same time. And I think more needs to be surfaced. The more we can call attention to it, the more we can call focus to the real issues, and then attack them appropriately is very, very important.
That's wonderful. So talking about approach, can you talk about some of the things that you guys are doing internally to lead your team in this kind of changing landscape? What, and that's more so along the lines of, you and I are talking a little bit about this as you and I as people, but,
Mhm.
as from a marketing standpoint, from creative standpoint.
Again, I think it goes back to being conscious and like, who are you casting? What does that look like? How are we speaking, right? The vernacular in which we're using in the ads all has to be looked at through a different lens or a new and educated lens. And I think that is very, very important. I once listened to the chief diversity officer at AT&T, I think it was AT&T speak. And she said, first and foremost, you look around your table, right? Look at who's at the table. And I've always thought about it. Like I've always thought about what she said, like, let's look at our table. And our table could mean the ad we're putting out. It could mean the communication. It could actually mean the table of team, right? But it could mean a lot of different things. And that's what we really try and do. And I think we all do it from a personal level as well as a business level. And then I think from an internal team and my personal team, you lead with empathy and you lead with emotional intelligence and you figure out what that means. It doesn't mean always calling attention to every little thing, but it's you lead with what the right feelings are and you're going to do a great job, right? The only time I don't see that working is when people lead with projects or tactics. You have to lead with empathy. And when you do that, the world changes around you because you're focused on the team and you're not focused on the actual item.
I love that. I love that. I also try to live by that mantra. The, with all of the things that you guys are kind of putting out there in terms of getting your messaging across, I'm curious, how are you measuring success? You had mentioned that it's not all about the app downloads. So
Yeah.
where is success coming for you guys?
It's across the board. So we measure engagement on certain things. We measure foot traffic on certain things. We measure orders if we can. Which again is very hard. Like if we were a fast casual has it a little bit easier, right? Because people will order ahead. And so whenever I hear a fast casual restaurant go, oh, our digital orders are through the roof. And I'm like, well, you're fast. Like, of course you take longer. It's like in your name, casual. So like, I can't compete with that. And then, of course, the downloads, right? And engagement on the website, what we're seeing now, it's going to be super painful because nobody likes when I tell them this. Every analytic makes you ask another question, right? So there's never a report that you can look at and go, wow, this was great. All done. We're done. No, there's probably something that came out of it as a test and trial, or it makes us ask another question. For instance, certain companies on their website, they might not want the traffic at their website. Like, why is the traffic on my website? Could they have gotten that somewhere else? Was my Google listing not correct? That they couldn't get directions there and they had to come all the way to my website. It just depends on what that analytic or metric is, tells a story, but you need all of them to really see the full picture. And so for me, anytime I look at numbers, it usually makes me ask another question, which everybody really loves when I'm like, well, what about this? And they're like, oh, we thought we were done. We're not. We have another question.
It's never done. I was just off a conference call earlier today and they're like, wouldn't it be great if we woke up and we just said, I'm getting ready for fun today. I'm getting dressed for fun. I'm taking a shower for fun. Just doesn't seem to end. So with that said, what are you guys looking for in terms, as you're measuring success in all these different ways, what's important when you're looking for new partners that might not have proven their success quite yet?
When I'm looking for new partners, it really breaks down to relationship, right? How do we work? How do I know when shit hits the fan? Because it will. Like something always happens, like small or big, that I can call you, that you're good for it, that you're going to stand up for us, that you're going to work with us as a partner, not just like a vendor client. Budget, right? Like we have to be able to work within certain parameters. So it's funny, like when the $1 million man comes through the door, I'm always like, I don't have $1 million to give you right now. Like, I'm sorry. And what's interesting is the ones that really want to work with you and end up being the $1 million man are ones that come in and go, yeah, we can test this together and we can make this work and let's prove success together. And then finally, it has to work, right? Like, sounds so simple, but like your product actually has to work. We have to be clear on expectations. And I always explain that as like going in, what are expectations, and make sure that you understand the same way I do. For instance, if I ask my kids to go clean their room and they come back and they're like, I cleaned it. And I'm like, well, the stuff's off the floor, but it's not put away. And they're like, you just said you wanted it clean. And I'm like, I don't think you understand what clean means. And so we have to go through all the expectations of what the word clean means in order to make sure that we're both clear on what they're going to go do, so that at the end of it, mommy doesn't lose her mind.
Right, right. No, I am with you. I guess it was a couple of nights ago, I was like, can you go brush your teeth? And he goes, so when you say brush your teeth, I was like, all of them, not just the front ones, all of them.
Every single question. Yeah. That happens a lot. And especially as they, that like 6 to 8 year old age is when they get really smart. And you're like, sometimes you're just like, touche. You got me there. Like, did not clarify that.
Do you guys have any plans for audio? I know we kind of touched on it for a second.
So like audio as in?
Digital audio?
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's already
space.
Already something, a space we're playing in. We really see a lot of positive results from it. Again, it's where people's ears are. So of course we're going to be there. That's
wonderful. And what role does innovation kind of play in your strategy?
Luckily, because my job's in MarTech, and there aren't a lot of restaurants out there that have a job title like head of marketing technology. It just doesn't exist. My boss was extremely smart in creating this role to say, hey, we want someone who kind of straddles that line, right, with innovation. And I get to work with our VP of Ops Innovation very closely to figure out like what's new and cool. Now, some things are so new and cool and so far away, right? Like you go to CES and you're like, that's amazing. Also 10 years down the road. But I get to work on the cool new things. So innovation, whether it's like things like digital menu boards, which you might think like, well, doesn't everybody have them? No, go to a restaurant. They don't. Not everybody has those. Or looking at what AI might look like, or any of those things, that all falls in our realm. And it's something that I totally geek out over.
That must be so much fun. So did you, whether you went virtually or in person for CES, what was the coolest thing you saw?
A lot of talk about the metaverse. And so what's interesting is people are like, well, what do we do with it? Nobody knows. Like what's next? But the virtual reality continues to be a conversation. Someone was like, soon you'll be able to do everything through a virtual reality metaverse. And I'm like, I don't think you can do everything. So like, maybe I'm not completely sold on all this, but it's super cool, right? 4 years ago when I went to CES, there were dancing robots and I was like, I need to have these. Like, it's really important that I have these in my life, right? What would I do with them? Nothing, but they're super cool. I really want a dancing robot. So, but things that have come out of it are like with the pandemic. So when the pandemic first started, I was in hotels. We had robots that could clean, robots that could spray sanitizer, robots that could sanitize air, not like robots as in like R2D2, but like similar, like small, and they'd roll around the floor and they'd help clean the area, especially as labor got more scarce. We were able to have robots out there doing that. So fast forward, it took 4 years to get to the point where like a robot was actually in the area. And the same way with hotel keys, right? Like for the longest time, you could open the door with your phone, but nobody was implementing that. The pandemic hit and everybody's like, I don't want to touch the door. And they're like, what if you could hold your phone up and it would do it? And they'd be like, yes, absolutely, I could do that. And so all of a sudden you had the funding, you had all these things to move that forward. And that's what the great horrible thing about the pandemic. And I say that because at no point do I want anyone to walk away and be like, she's really happy this happened. I'm not, but it did accelerate marketing technology.
Right. Speaking of fast forward, so if you and I were having this conversation in December, what would you want to be talking about?
All the success we've had. I jokingly said to someone this morning when they said Happy New Year, I was like, that ship has sailed. We are so past the new year, right? Like it is gone. It feels like it's already July, how much work we've done in 12 days. But in December, I'd like to be looking back and go really happy with the expectations that were set this month and what we achieved as a team.
I actually kind of want to touch on something that I saw on your LinkedIn profile, just because I am a mom of a son, but I am very big girl power.
Yes.
And I saw your support and your initiative for Built for Girls. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So Built for Girls is all about promoting girls in the STEM field in one form or another, right? They don't all do what I do, but I became an advisor to them. So they pair me or mentor with a female who has something going on that they want support, either high school or college, and they're trying to figure it out. And I have met some of the brightest young women doing this. That one of the young ladies graduating high school, figuring out what college she wants to go to, started her own business because she found out that bilingual books didn't really exist. There were books in Spanish, there were books in English, but a true bilingual book didn't exist. And her little brother was having trouble reading because he couldn't read all in Spanish, couldn't really read all in English because he was learning English in school, but would come home and mom and dad would speak Spanish. And she's like, we need truly bilingual books and audio tapes. And she started this book, which ended up being like a subscription service or a business, and started going out reading the bilingual book that she first wrote to, and she found an illustrator to do it, like super scrappy, to libraries, to kids. And people loved it and they wanted to buy these books, and just so smart. And she was meeting with me because she was like, where do I go from here? Are there grants? And I was like, yeah, there's grants. Like, absolutely, there's grants. And we started connecting her with all the right dots so that she could figure out, like, all right, what does a business plan look like? Where do you go? Like, you have the great idea. Where do you go from here? And so smart. I spoke to another young lady who she was just trying to figure out, like in college, she felt like she was kind of forced into one major. And she's like, I want to experience what all these other majors are, but I don't know how to do it. And they ask so much of you now in college. And so we talked through it, and I just became truly like someone they can bounce ideas off of. And they want to hear, like, how did I get to where I'm at? Which my story is insane and crazy, and no one has a story just like mine. But it's been a wonderful experience, and actually seeing the change in these women and their connection with me. I think the organization does a lot of really, really good things. I suggest anyone who wants to get involved to check it out and get involved.
Yeah, no, I saw that on your profile and I was like, ooh, I like her already.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very cool program, and I'd love to actually dig in a little bit more and learn about it. So as we're kind of closing in, I wanted to just congratulations you on that CMO of the year in 2020.
Thank you.
What a huge accomplishment.
It was like, of all the years to get it, right? They said you managed through the pandemic. Like, okay.
But better than others.
Yeah, apparently you won the you got us through the pandemic award. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So if we were talking a little bit about books and that bilingual book, if you were going to write a book, what do you think that tagline, that title would look like?
Oh God, I don't know. That is a really good question. So if I wrote a book, what would like the cover say? It would probably be like the roller coaster ride of how she never gave up, right? Like, because that seems to be my life, right? Like, there are highs, there are lows. There have been times where I've been without a job. There have been times where I've been at the very bottom of the rock, right? Or getting someone coffee, and like the first ever intern. And I think that it makes me much more grateful for what I have today. It makes me much more understanding of others because I know how I've been treated. And so I think it would be about that. And I think that it really is that meme that people show where it's like the guy chiseling away in a tunnel, and then he gives up and is walking back, and it says like success is at the right, just on the other side of this tunnel. But he never knows because he turned around. And my feeling is like, don't turn around. Like, who cares? Just like cover your eyes and like plow forward. And I
Did
think
what you
that
did.
that's really important. And there's nothing, the only person that can stop you is yourself, right? If life gets you, like pushes you down, which it has many, many times, you're the only person that can decide to stay down.
Right, right. I'm feeling energized, Erin.
I feel like I just gave like a full motivational speech. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm like, I love it. I love it. On the topic of books, do you have any good ones to share or any favorites?
I'm a big fan of Radical Candor, that book. It teaches about how to be direct without being an asshole. And I'm a big
Oh,
believer in, if you care about someone, I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to tell you how I feel. And because you know I care so much, you will accept it and make changes from it. But if I don't care about you and I tell you the truth, which there are plenty of people, I'm sure anyone listening could think of someone who's like been really direct with them and they're like, that guy's an asshole. Well, if you want to know if they truly are, you have to decide if they truly care about you. If they truly
right.
care about you, they're not an asshole. They care about you. That's why they're being so direct. If they don't care about you, or you realize they're not someone who's going to stay in your life, think about where that feedback's coming from, throw it out the window. So
Right.
big believer in that. I love there are a lot of women's empowerment books that I love too. I think they've gotten me a long way. So the lean-ins of the world and things like that, big believer in.
Absolutely. I like that. I'm going to write down Radical Candor right now. When I've been looking for new employees to fill a headcount on my team, there are a lot of questions that are like, what kind of questions are, I'm like, well, you know what, I'm going to try to dig down, make sure that they're not an asshole, because that is very key for my team. So
I'll hire a personality if I believe you can learn any day. Personality, attitude, not giving up. Because when people go, do you have 20 years of marketing experience? I'm like, I don't know if I do. Hold on. I don't think I do.
I hate adding it all up.
Yeah, that's not what I have. I have an attitude. I didn't give up and I kept going forward. And so for me to go, well, you need to have 20 years of this in order for me to hire you, just seems nuts to me, right? Like,
Insane.
I applied for a job when I was living in Vegas and they said, well, we're only looking at people who have 20 years of experience. And at the time I was like, you literally counted me out because I'm not 45.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, like, there's no way I could get this
Impossible.
job. Like, and they were like, well, we don't think of it as age. I was like, by putting that amount of years of experience, you just age someone by default.
Yep. It's true. Well, Erin, this has been fantastic. I am thrilled that we got to meet and got to spend some time talking about this. I'm a fan already. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it as well.